Good evening. It is my favorite part of the evening, the time when we get to spend some time to each other through the digital communications here. My name is Adrian Webster, if you don't know me, and this is the Whangarei Seventh-day Adventist Church's live stream channel. So thank you for joining us tonight. We have an exciting conversation with two young people from the local church here in Whangarei, Georgia Melville and Katie Woodward. And we're going to be talking to them a little bit about their spiritual journey, what it is that sealed the deal for them in terms of giving their hearts to the Lord, and what it is that they are experiencing right now in terms of their adventure of working for the Lord. Why is it that a young person would choose to give the best, most energetic years of their lives to the service of the Lord? So many others just want to be out there having a good time and wasting their youth, as it were. But here are two examples that have chosen to do something different, and we want to find out why. What is it about them that has made them decide to give their heart and their all to the Lord? So thank you for joining us this evening. It is great to have you with us this evening. So before I bring them on screen, I want to invite you to remember that you can find us. Of course, if you happen to not be on YouTube right now, you can find us by simply going to YouTube and searching up Whangarei Seventh-day Adventist Church. You will also find us on Facebook or on Instagram. And then, of course, tell YouTube to share this content. And how do you do that? If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, share, and use the comment section. So please, if you want to share some love with the young ladies tonight and encourage them in their walk, be sure to use the comment section. If you have any questions for them, we'll be able to see that as well and bring you into the conversation with them. So I want to introduce you, first of all, to Georgia, and then, of course, to Katie. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining us tonight on our live stream.
No worries.
Yeah.
Hello.
So tell me, where are you guys and what are you up to right now, besides being on the live stream?
I'm just at my flat in Auckland, living that lockdown life, just working and watching lots of movies.
Yes, that's right. We are free and able to go out, Georgia, and you are still in level 4 lockdown, aren't you?
Nice for some. Yes, we are still in that level 4. In principle, we're going down to level 3 on Tuesday, but I don't have high hopes.
There's always hope. There's always hope. And Katie, you are in this part of the world closer to where I am, and you also have a bit of freedom, right?
Yes, I'm in Pirate Bay. I'm staying with my family. I have been living over in Australia, in Newcastle, but came over here in June to visit my family, which was meant to be a 3-week trip, and now it's been 3 months. Will be a few more. So yeah, making the most of the slight freedoms in New Zealand, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. And Katie is not going to be Woodward for too long, are you, Katie? Tell us the good news.
No, so I got engaged about a month ago. Getting married to my fiance Caleb at the end of the year, so it's very exciting. We'll do that over here before we head back to Australia.
Nice, congratulations. That's awesome. So I bet you were spending a fair bit of your time being a wedding planner.
Yes, a lot at the moment.
Yeah, right. Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for joining us to both of you. And we want to have a little bit of a conversation around your lives and your experience with the Lord. And so tell us a little bit about your personal spiritual journey and what made you decide to give your heart to the Lord. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, when did Jesus become your friend? Because I know the two of you for long enough now to know that you've actually grown up in Christian families, right? But there's a point at which, for every young person, if you're going to follow the Lord, it can't be your parents' religion anymore. It can't be, the adults you look up to. It's got to become yours. So when did that happen for you? How did that happen for you? Let's start with any, meeny, miny, mo. Let's go with you, Katie.
Yeah, so I guess growing up in the church, I never wanted to leave, never had any interest in walking away from church at all. But I guess I didn't always really understand it, and definitely didn't always have a relationship with God. I was baptized in 2012, I'm pretty sure, when I was about 15. But then a few years after that, was rebaptized. I was at a summer camp in the States and was a camp counselor for a few months, and had to be, a spiritual leader to all of these girls that were coming into my cabin every week. And that was something that was out of my comfort zone. but having to share my journey with God with them, and what God meant to me, having to share that with girls, I started to build to know Him more, and God was able to work through me to reach the girls in my cabins. And at the end of that summer, after a few months there, I was rebaptized, and I guess it was really because I'd finally figured out what it meant to have a relationship with God, and wanted to just recommit my life to Him, having experienced His presence and knowing Him in my life, and what He'd done for me and what He could do through me in my life as well. So it was sort of at that point, I guess, that would have been, I think, 2017. I could be wrong. I was rebaptized, and sort of, I guess that was when I really started to grow with God and build that relationship with Him on a different level to what I'd known before that.
I like that. Okay, so the two things I'm getting out of there: number one, that as you were actually ministering to others, it became a lot more real to you, and that sort of helped you to sort of step out and really seek the Lord in a different way. I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, Georgia, before I come to you, we have a message here from your dad. Should I put it on the screen for you?
I can see it. Yeah.
He says, "Good to see your room's tidy, Georgia." That's awesome.
Yes, always there for me.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so tell us.
How did it was 3 minutes into the live stream as well. It didn't take long.
Tell us your story there a little bit, Georgia.
I think for me it was a much slower process that I didn't actually see happening for a long time. Obviously, I grew up in the religious household, and my parents were great role models and that sort of thing, and I had great role models everywhere. But I think sometimes when you're a kid, you have this understanding of God as like, yeah, He's there, but do I ever really speak to Him or connect with Him? And that's a difficult thing, I think, to transition out of. So for me, I got baptized quite young as well. And I have never regretted that, because I think that when that happened, I had a firm understanding of what I was agreeing to, but I didn't necessarily have the relationship yet. So for me, it doesn't diminish the choice that I made, because the choice was always there, and never in my life did I go, oh, maybe I don't want to be religious. But there was definitely times where, like, I probably wasn't living it in my life to the fullest. And so then it kind of came to a point for me where all of a sudden, when I did have things that I couldn't deal with on my own, I had to turn somewhere. And then that was when that relationship started to build, and that was when I felt it. I think for a long time I felt like, I've grown up in such a great household, like I've had such an incredible life. I don't think that I have these big problems that other people seem to have that need solving by God, and I should be focusing my energies and my time and my emotions on other people and their problems. And so my problems aren't big enough for others to care about, or for me to complain to God to. And so when I finally got to a point where I'm going, actually, these things are big things in my life, and I need someone who isn't just another person to deal with them and work through them with. That was when I started to connect with God, and I could see Him in my life, and I could look through it and go, oh, actually, I now have a relationship with you, because I'm actively seeking it, not just kind of like, you're there kind of thing.
I like it. So it's really the journey of dependence, right? Learning to come to that place where we actually sense that real heartfelt soul emptying need of the Lord. And you're quite right. Like we live on a continuum of hardship in this world, and not everybody's on that extreme continuum. And so, sometimes when you're on that extreme continuum, it's like you're awakened to your need much quicker. Perhaps being further along towards the other side of the continuum is actually a bit of a liability, because, as you say, we might look around, compare ourselves to others, and think, oh, well, maybe I don't need God as much. But the reality is, the actual truth is, we all desperately need God on that deep level, don't we?
And even saying that in itself used to feel selfish to me, as in like, I do have things, I do need things, I am in need, and I deserve to have God as a place in my life, and all those kind of things. Like, but for me, it was like, oh, that's selfish. There's other people who need this attention more. This message is for someone else. It's not for me because I'm very lucky. And that's not always a bad attitude to have, but if you take it too far one way, then it can actually separate you in a relationship with God, because you're not seeking him out and going, yeah, I'm actually imperfect and life can get really messy and I need your help, kind of thing.
That's right. We don't all have the same messy lives on the outside, but we have all got the same sinful, selfish heart for which there's no remedy but the Savior, right? Yeah, important that we come to that place where we realize that. I love what both of you have shared here, because so often the people we're talking to have had these grand, miraculous. Well, when I say miraculous, like more like what's the right word? Supernatural encounters with God. The like riveting story stuff. And I'm listening to both of you, and I'm hearing you both say it was a journey of just almost imperceptible, continual growth. It started in the head, moved down into the heart, whether it was through your service of people, Katie, or whether it was through your recognizing your own heart's need, Georgia. The journey was slow, it was steady, it wasn't dramatic, but it has led to that place of a genuine, heartfelt relationship. Would you say that's about right, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. There's often people will ask me, at what point did this happen? At what point did you start this journey with God? And I guess I kind of pointed to the summer camp, but definitely, I was baptized 5 years before that. So I was on a journey, and of course there's no specific points in time that I can say that's when this happened. It has definitely been a progression, something that's happened slowly over time.
Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit, Georgia, you have finished your studies. What did you study?
Marketing communications.
Right. And you are in the middle of your studies, Katie?
Yes, so I'm halfway through Bachelor of Ministry and Theology.
Wow. Okay. So the two of you have studied. Now they sound like very different disciplines, and they are very different disciplines. But here's the interesting twist to the story. Georgia, where are you using your skills?
So I'm working for a church here in the North Shore, Auckland, called Gracegate. So my job role itself is very, very broad. So it is a marketing job, but there's a lot that it entails. So I do some event management, photography, graphic design, all sorts of things. And then I help out leading the young adults life group. So a surprising amount of like things that have nothing to do with marketing.
But the interesting thing here is you've chosen to use your skills in the service of a church, or we could say in the service of God. So here you are, you haven't studied theology, but you are in ministry, aren't you?
Yeah, which sometimes I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, how did that happen? But yeah, it does end up being that way. I think not necessarily because of the role itself, but because of the choice that you've made. When I started my job, there's probably other places that I could have gone that would pay more and give me more experience in marketing, all that kind of thing. But I kind of I didn't make a deal with God, but I said to God when I applied for the job, because I did really want to work there, if I take this job, then I want to be helping people. I don't just want to sit behind a desk and make cool graphics. I want to be doing what you think is best for me to be doing in the way that I can help people most. And if this is the way you want my life to go, then I'm 100% committed. So I kind of had that conversation with God of, if this happens, then, I choose this and I choose to be 100% what you want me to be.
So if Providence opens the doors, I'll walk through them.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was very interesting because all of a sudden, once I had the job, I found myself in situations that I'd never been in before, in terms of communicating with others and being there for others and trying to help lead other people, which for me was like, I'm 21, I don't know if I'm qualified for this leading, but yeah, it happened almost instantly in a way that it's like, I can't doubt that it's a result of that conversation that I had with God, which I didn't really think necessarily at the time it would result so aggressively. Yeah, all of a sudden I got the job and it was like there in front of me happening, and I was like, oh, hello.
Nice. Now, Katie, how do you end up going to study theology of all things?
So it's kind of a big question, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Well, I liked what Georgia said before. She's like, oh, like, I can't remember the words you used, but how did I end up here? It's just sort of been a crazy journey for me, because I guess, well, when I think back to when I was first baptized, I was this like shy little kid who kind of, didn't really know what she thought about the world, what she thought about God, what she thought about her faith. And right from there, God was working in my heart, and I ended up at that summer camp in 2017. And then after that, through some people I talked to over there, I was supposed to be going to work as a violin teacher at a missionary school in Thailand, and sort of had that all lined up for after I was finished at the summer camp. And that kind of, they pushed that back a little. They said, oh, our teacher that you're going to be replacing she's going to be staying a little bit longer, so we don't need you for a couple more months. And that sort of kept getting pushed back month by month. And it got to the end of that year, and I was still thinking that I was going to be going at the beginning of the next year, but then it fell through completely, and they said, oh, well, we don't need you anymore. We had someone else that's come through. So then I was left with the whole year ahead of me, and I just had no idea what I was going to do. And then
what did that feel like at the time? Sorry to interrupt you, but what did that feel like at the time? Were you frustrated? Was it like, all these plans and hopes had sort of fallen apart, or were you okay with it? You're just like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah, well, I guess the way that I heard about it and the way that it kind of came together, playing the violin, I love teaching. I love playing the violin, and it was in Thailand, which is a place I've always wanted to go, and missionary work was something that I'd always wanted to do. So it was kind of like the perfect little package. And I thought, oh, God's just dropped this on me, and he's saying, this is the next step for you. And of course, as it kept getting pushed forward, I thought, okay, well, it's not quite the right time. God's just saying, just wait a little bit longer, wait a bit longer. So then when it fell through, I guess I was confused, because I thought that's where God was leading me. And I just didn't know. Yeah, I was just confused, because, I was so sure that was where I was meant to be going, and that's where God was leading. Little did I know he was. I just had it a bit wrong. So when that sort of fell through, I ended up going to Arise in Australia, which is a Bible college, a discipleship training course for 3 months. And that was something that was, well, I guess everything I bring up is going to be something out of my comfort zone. It was crazy. I was learning heaps, and I was absolutely loving it and growing in my relationship with God, but also doing a little bit of Bible working. And I was out knocking on doors and doing Bible studies with people, which I kind of hated, because that was not something that, going up and knocking on someone's door is just a hard thing to do. But at the end of that 3 months, I again thought I was going to be going to Thailand. And that fell through again, and I ended up Bible working for another 6 months, which was not what I wanted to do at all. But I kind of chose that because I guess God sort of chose it for me, but I don't know. I just did it even though I didn't really want to. And again, that was super, super challenging and way out of my comfort zone, but was something that grew me heaps. And at the end of that 6 months, again, I was in a position where I was wondering, what am I going to do next? What's the next step in my life? Do I go study? Do I go find a job? What do I do? And right at the end of that 6 months, I heard about, well, I guess people told me about chaplaincy, and what a chaplain does in schools. And I thought, hey, that's really cool. And then I heard about a job that was going in Melbourne at a school, and ended up applying for that job and getting that job, and then, you know, flying to Melbourne and starting a job as a chaplain, well, maybe 2 months after I'd even heard about that and sort of even started thinking about it. And again, I was just dumped in the deep end and was like, I'm way out of my comfort zone here. What am I doing? I don't even really know what this means. But I spent 2 years there working as a chaplain in the primary school. It was a high school and primary, but I was in the primary section, and I just loved working with the little kids. And it was, I guess, you know, a few months before I started, I had no idea that was even a possibility, and no idea that was something that I would love. But then I got into it and thought, wow, this is, you know, God was definitely leading me to this point, and this is what I want to be doing. And just the way that everything worked out with the Thailand thing falling through, and then going to the Arise program. If I hadn't done the Arise program, I wouldn't have done the Bible work, which I didn't want to be doing anyway. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have heard about the position. I wouldn't have got that position and ended up at that school. And looking back at right when that Thailand thing fell through, I thought, hey, God was actually leading there, because he knew, I think of it like a carrot on a stick, you know. He was just sort of putting off my plans to study and other things, so that I ended up with this year free to go over to Australia. And yeah, I guess working as a chaplain, I just really didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, it was such an incredible experience, and definitely where God wanted me to be. And I grew so much through that, being able to, again, share my faith with others, really grew me in my relationship with God. And during my time there, I sort of felt God calling me to start studying. So I started doing that by distance for a year, and eventually got sick of having to listen to recorded lectures and do stuff online. So ended up moving to Avondale at the beginning of, at the end of last year, and yeah, have been there for half this year anyway, studying on campus. So that's been super incredible, and yeah, not something that I would have ever picked for myself. Like looking at me way back in 2012, when I first got baptized, like I was terrified. I didn't know, I didn't know what I thought about anything. But then I look at myself now and where I am, and I don't think, oh, I'm so great now, like I've done all this stuff, look at me. But I see how God grew me through that process and put me in the right places at the right time, so that I would get the skills I needed and be thrown into experiences that were too much for me. So I had to rely on him. And it was just, crazy. Like I can see God's fingerprint through every little part and every little thing that happened over the last 4 or 5 years. And it's just been an insane journey, I guess.
Yeah. I love what you said there, because it's so true that oftentimes when our plans are disappointed and we've got this idea in our head, especially when you think God's actually leading you in something and then it all comes apart, it's a hard moment where you're like, well, did I get it that wrong? What's going on? But I like what you're saying, that actually God leads us along step by step. He has a plan for us. He doesn't always tell us what that great plan is. He says, for now, I want you to be thinking of this. We assume that means this is where I'm going to be. Actually, he's like, well, Noah, you're going to be a few steps down the road from there, but all I really want you to be thinking about now, what's important today, is that you plan on this, that you do this, So yeah, that's great. I love that. Because I'm sure there's plenty of viewers who have struggled with that, where the plans come apart and you sometimes question your journey with the Lord. You wonder, how could you get it so wrong? And maybe actually God is in his providence actually working out something bigger and greater than what you dared to imagine and dared to dream before. So if you are watching right now, our viewers, and you have any comments or encouragement for these young ladies, please send them through in the comments. We can share it with them. Georgia, I really liked what you were highlighting there about this idea that you don't have to become a theologian and study theology to give your heart and your service and your skills to the Lord. in his work. I mean, you are a minister. You are maybe not a pastor in that sense, but a minister in the sense that you are ministering to people right where you are. You're using marketing skills to, you know, further the kingdom of God. And I love that fact. And that's really something I want our audience to catch a picture of, that you don't have to become, because I remember when I gave my heart to the Lord and I realized this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to serve the Lord for the rest of my days. The only thing I could think of is that I was totally green and naive, right? The only thing I could think of was, well, if I'm going to serve the Lord full time, I must go study theology and become a pastor. Like that was what it meant to, you know, work for God. This box called pastor. And over the years, I've come to realize, actually, no, if you are called to pastoral ministry, absolutely good thing, go for it. But you may be called to minister to God in other creative ways with other talents outside the realm of being a pastor. So great experiences. And I really want to thank you, ladies, for sharing them so far. It's fantastic. Anything else you want to add to your stories there so far?
I think for me as well, like what you were just saying then, is an understanding that I can't help but think of the story of Moses when he had that stutter, right? He had quite a bad stutter. And he was like, I can't speak. I don't know what to do. And God gave him the words. Often when I find myself in positions where I'm like, I just would have no idea what to say. You know, someone is struggling with something and they're looking for me to say the right thing. And all of a sudden just kind of words come out and you're like, how did I think of that? Or how did I say that? Or they go, wow, I really needed to hear that. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. And I'm like, there's no way I could have planned that in my head. This isn't just like I studied this or I did that or whatever it was. And that's what helped me say the right thing. You never know what the right thing is to say a lot of the time because it's so dependent on the other person. So I think it's just that understanding that you have to be willing and open to not like make it you controlling everything and just kind of let things be what they will be, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, hey, it's one of the greatest adventures of being in the service of the Lord I've found is that there are moments where you just know that this thing that just happened was not of my origin, wasn't of my doing. This wisdom, this whatever, like I didn't know what the answer was. And yeah, I've had moments like that where you're just like, whoa, God is real. And that was in serving other people. In the same way you, Katie, were describing how it was when you really had to start putting it on the line to serve other people. That's when it took the next step of becoming real to you, right?
I guess.
So, yeah, go for it.
Let me jump in here. Love what you're saying. It's sort of making me think. When I went to Melbourne and started working as a chaplain, there was so many things about me, about my personality that, like areas I thought I really lacked in. And I thought, I'm not the ideal person to be doing this. Like, yes, God managed to get me into this job, but only because he got me there. I thought this is not me. I'm not the right person for this job. I can't be doing this. And I can't, I'm not the right person to be in ministry. And I guess what I really learned is that God uses anyone for his purposes, whether it's, in ministry in a church or in ministry in your life in any other area. There's the areas of my life that I thought I was lacking in and, thought because of those I couldn't serve God. He was able to really grow me in those areas and just supplied everything I needed. And the biggest thing I think of, the biggest example is public speaking. In high school, I essentially failed English in my last year because I just refused to do the speech. It was only a 5-minute speech, but at that point I was so terrified of being up in front of people and having any attention on me that, I would feel sick. I'd feel like I was going to throw up. I would get sweaty. I would shake. I couldn't speak properly. I would just mumble and say the wrong things because I was so nervous and, chose to just fail instead of having to get up for 5 minutes in front of my class and do a speech. And when I became a chaplain, of course, I didn't like public speaking. It wasn't something I wanted to be doing. And it kind of hit me one day. I remember thinking, oh, this means I have to get up in front of people. And suddenly I was put in front of crowds of, 300 little kids or 500 high school kids and teachers as well. And it was like one of my biggest fears. I just absolutely hated doing it. And I was expected to get up and talk like I knew what I was talking about and seem like I was half confident being up the front. And that was one of my biggest weaknesses. And God was able to work powerfully through that in the area. And, people would come and compliment what I had to share. They compliment my speaking, which I just couldn't understand at all. Like, it made no sense to me. I thought being up there, it was like the most awful thing. I absolutely hated it. But practice made it easier and easier. And definitely, don't get me wrong, I don't consider myself a good public speaker at all. But I know that this is an area of my life that was one of my biggest fears. It was something I really, really struggled in. But God was able to take that and say, hey, you might not think you're good at this, but I'm going to give you skills in this area. I'm going to speak through you in these situations. And even though you think you can't do this, I can do it through you. So, practice helps you get better at things. But I think of 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9, it says, my grace is sufficient for you because I'm going to mess this one up. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness.
That's right.
And that was a verse I really clung to when I started out as a chaplain because, I was weak. I didn't have the skills. I didn't know what I was doing. But in all of those situations where I thought, I can't do this, God was working through me. And I guess that's such an important thing for everyone to remember, because there's things in our life where, God gives us opportunities to serve him. And we might think, oh, I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. But if we're willing, if we give God that opportunity to work through us, he's going to be able to do incredible things that we couldn't even imagine. And, we'll think, oh, I can't do this, but God does it through us. And that's where God really shines, is through our weaknesses, through those things we can't do. That's when people see him moving, because, we can't do that on our own, but because of him, he does that through us.
Yeah. And you're quite right there. And for anybody who's watching, if you've ever been in that place where you thought, oh, I think God's calling me to something, but it's not me, or I just can't do it, or whatever, it may feel unnatural to you. But guess what? As Katie's testifying here, God does not leave you alone to do that which he has called you to do without his presence, right? And Judith, Judy, good to see you. She says, wow, that's a powerful example of God preparing, equipping, and qualifying the called. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a profound thing that when we step out in faith like that, God does things that completely change our experience and enable us to accomplish what he's called us to. We never ever go it alone. Now, I do have this question for you, though. Seeing as you're both young and energetic, and you've got, this is like the best years of your life right now, don't you ever feel like maybe you're missing out on something out there in the world? I mean, your mates and, the parties and all that stuff going on. I mean, lots of young people would think you're crazy. You're wasting the best years of your life. What do you say to that?
For me, to be honest, because I started my uni life in dorms and all that sort of thing, I've definitely had a good view of what their life is like. There was elements of it that I definitely I'm not going to pretend that I completely excluded myself from all of those things and was like, no, I'm sorry, back away. So I feel like I haven't been just sat on the sidelines and gone, I've definitely been able to see it very forefront. So for me, though, it really solidified a lot of the decisions that I made, because I'm someone who, my parents will testify, I like to learn things on my own. I'm not always good at just following other people's advice.
A little bit stubborn there, Georgia.
Sorry? Yeah,
a little bit
just
stubborn,
a little
maybe?
bit stubborn. Just a tiny bit. And so the thing for me is that I actually made some of my best friends to this day in those environments. And the thing is that I don't feel like I'm missing out, because I've seen what it's done to their lives. I've seen even the impact it had on my life. And it's an inconsistent happiness. And I feel like I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I don't like things like that challenge that side of my personality. I enjoy being optimistic. But when you are living that life of, it's just so unstable. It's so unstable. It's this up, down, up, down. And I've seen the effects that it's had on the people around me. But I also think that we're called to be in the world, but not of the world. So I hold on to those friendships and those environments in a certain way, in a boundary sort of way, because I think you're taught often that people who live the wild youth life, or whatever you want to call it, are terrible people who are trying to tear down your faith, which I've actually found the opposite. I've found that those people are some of the best people that I know, and I've had a lot to learn from them, actually, about myself, about my faith journey, about life, and keeping those friendships. They're not only great friendships, but they humble me, and they keep me relatable, and they keep me able to communicate with people outside of church and all that kind of thing, because it's so easy to just like kind of warding yourself off and then just be a church person who doesn't talk to anyone else except other church people. So I think I don't find it so difficult for myself, because I've seen it, and I just realized that nothing of that world would ever fill my cup in the same way that ministry and God does. It's just things like that, they can make you happy, but it's not a consistent happiness. It's not I feel like I'm full and thriving and living to the best of my abilities. It's a temporary, it's a temporary happiness. So I think that there's elements of it that I think I miss sometimes, just the social elements of it. You can build bonds with some really cool people in those situations, but I think for me, I'm pretty certain in my decisions, for sure.
Love it. What would you say, Katie?
I guess thinking about what you're saying, Georgia, I guess I've kind of been in a bit of a church bubble for the last little while. Like, I'm studying at an Adventist college, I'm going to an Adventist church, and then go back to my Adventist housemates, and then go hang out with my Adventist friends. Like, I'm just in this little Adventist Christian bubble, and have been for a lot of what I've been doing for the last little while. And definitely, as good as that can be, that's definitely not how God has called us to live. And we absolutely should have friends that are outside of the church, and those friends can have a big impact on us in many different ways. But I guess thinking about that, I was also thinking about the idea that, probably for you within that, you've had key people that you've been connected to who have shared your faith and have been able to help you grow on that journey. And so I guess thinking about missing out on things, I know for myself, like, I've been surrounded by such a good network of Christian friends who have been able to encourage me in my own faith. And I've never felt like I've been missing out on anything, because I was able to share my life with them and share what I believed in with them, and, be able to share experiences with God with them as well. But also, I guess, when I do look back at my journey over the last few years, and how God has worked in every single little part and every detail, I can just see so clearly how he's had his hand in all those little things, and just orchestrated everything so that I would be in the right time, in the right place at the right time, and be doing the things that he wanted me to be doing. And those weren't necessarily things that I enjoyed, like door knocking, but also there was, like, working as a chaplain. That was just the most incredible job that I could imagine myself doing. So sometimes it was things I didn't enjoy. Sometimes it was things that I really did enjoy. But God knew what was good for me at the time. And I guess it just kind of keeps, like, my journey with God keeps getting better and better. And I can't imagine ever missing out on anything, because life with God is full of so many incredible experiences and so much joy and so much goodness. And even when there's hard stuff that comes along, like, it's not, the Christian life isn't easy all the time. It's not like we walk with God and then suddenly everything is good. But in amongst that, when God is with us, we can have joy even in those situations and know that he is taking care of us, that he's going to be with us and stay with us and help us. And yeah, I guess I just never imagine I'm missing out on anything, because life with God is so full of good things. Like there's
love it.
Love it.
Absolutely. Right. Well, we're just about out of time. So to close off, what I want to do is give you each a chance to share a thought or two with maybe a young person who's listening right now or watching after the fact, if they're not watching live. What would you say to a young person? And then mix that up with a verse. Now, I know you already shared your verse, Katie. I don't know if that was it or whether you've got another one for us, but feel free, if you've got one up your sleeve, to share a Bible verse with us and, share a key thought that you'd love to get across to another young person that might be watching. Let's start with you, Georgia.
For me, in terms of a verse, I'm going to start with that. Give my brain a second to process. The one that I often come back to, I've had a few that I definitely like and I definitely resonate with, but the one that I come back to is actually kind of savage. So, give me a chance to explain myself.
Okay.
But it's Matthew 7:24, and it says, therefore, whoever hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise... Hold on. You know what? That's the wrong verse. That's not the right one. I'm sorry. The one that I'm thinking of, though, is it talks about how there'll be many people who come to God and say, Lord, I did all these things in your name and I did all this work for you and all this ministry. And that this is like end times kind of thing. And he'll say, I didn't know you. Get away kind of thing. And I remember hearing that he found it. There we go.
On
Judgment Day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, we prophesied in your name and cast out demons in your name and performed many miracles in your name. But I will reply, I never knew you. Get away from me, you who break God's laws. I heard that verse for me at a very pivotal point in my life where I felt like it was a crossroads for me in my relationship with God. I always wanted a relationship with God, but I didn't know how to develop one and I didn't understand why I didn't have one. And I heard that verse and I actually just started crying because for me, I realized in that moment that I'd been trying to control my relationship with God and put him in a box and put him in the space in my mind that I would let him out when it was convenient for me. And I wasn't letting him into like a full part of my life. And when I heard that, I realized that I wasn't letting him know me. And I don't think that that's necessarily exactly what it means in that context. But for me, it resonated in the way of like, I'm not allowing God to know me. I'm not allowing him into my life. And it's not him. He's not the one going, yeah, I'll get to you in a minute. Because that was how it felt for me sometimes, that he was sidelining me and going, yeah, I'll get to you in a minute, these bigger problems. And so I realized that actually it wasn't him, it was me putting him in that box and going, well, you don't fit in this space in my mind, so I'm going to put you over here for now. And when I heard that verse, to me, it was like, I need to actually put effort into this and I need to actually do something about it and stop trying to control everything around me and let him control it for me. So I guess my advice would be, one, we have no control over this life. And I think the sooner that we accept it, the sooner that we actually learn to kind of like ride those waves and just deal with things as they come. So I think that would be a big piece of advice, is that like, don't try and corner him or put him in a box or figure it out when you think it's best for you, because at the end of the day, it's like everything is happening. And also the realization was for me was that even when I tried to have control, I thought that I'd made all these decisions on my own. I thought that I'd been the one who had controlled where I ended up. But when I looked back on how my life had gone, I realized that there was no coincidences. There was no me making decisions. There was no, oh, well, I ended up here because I worked my way here. It was him guiding me towards things, even when I thought that he was telling me, hey, just wait a minute, I've got bigger problems right now. he was actually taking me places that I didn't understand, that I couldn't see. Meanwhile, the whole time I was trying to like put him in this box. So my best advice would be don't be naive and realize that you have no control. And
grace
if
and
you
the kindness of God, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, if you actually look at your life with this view of coincidences don't exist, you'll see that there's a much bigger thing at play.
Yeah, I once heard a great definition of coincidence. Coincidence is when God chooses to remain anonymous.
Exactly.
Yeah, Katie.
I guess there's kind of two verses that I was thinking of, and yeah, one I shared before, but the verse I was just thinking of is John 17:3, which says, "Now this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." And for me, this verse kind of points out, eternal life isn't just it's not just, we don't do the right things to be able to eventually get to heaven and avoid death and avoid, life coming to an end, but it's not just about getting to this wonderful place called heaven, but it's about knowing God, knowing Jesus, and having a relationship. And this is a verse that kind of pops up for me all the time. So I guess my first point is that the point is a relationship with God. If you don't understand, like back when I was a teenager, if you don't understand kind of what you're missing, why you're sort of feeling confused, I would say, a relationship with Jesus is what matters most in this life. And he's right there waiting for you to just turn to him and build that relationship with him. And the second verse I shared before, 2 Corinthians 12:9, "But my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." I talked about this before. It's the idea of, we all have weaknesses. We all have areas where we don't think we're good enough. We don't think we have skills. And we might, no matter what area of our life it is that God's calling us to serve him in, we might say, "Oh, I can't do that." But God is always going to give us the skills, not even the skills, but the ability, the strength to be able to go and do that. So if you just give God your willingness, nothing else, that's all he needs, then he's able to work through you. And, it's kind of, I guess, can be a really scary thing to say to God, "Hey, I want to serve you in my life. How can I do that?" But if you go and say that to God, I mean, you have to kind of be careful what you ask for, because he'll show you. But, asking God to be able to work through you in your life and to reach others through you is just the most incredible thing, because even if you think you can't do it, God's able to do incredible things, which will just blow your mind. So I definitely encourage you, step out in faith and trust that God is able to do crazy things through you, and wait and see what he's able to do.
Yeah, I love it. Like we say, you just can't make this stuff up. Like when you ask God to do these things for you, you just can't dream of the ways in which he's going to fulfill these promises and bring these things. Just the twists and the turns along the way.
Even for me, the interesting thing was that when I started my degree, marketing, for me, I was like, it's scary how fast that kind of career can become quite manipulative. You're manipulating other people into buying the things that you want them to buy and doing the things that you want them to do. And I said when I started that I wanted to do this, but I never wanted to do it just to sell random stuff. And I said, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to find a way to make it mean something. But I never actually had the thought process of, I'll go and work for a church. I was like, I'll find something. I don't know. I wanted to do like advertisements for those ones that you see for alcoholics and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that's something that I feel like I could do. And then I feel like, all of a sudden he gave me what I wanted, but in a way that I didn't think that I wanted it, which I find interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Hey, ladies, it has been great having you on our live stream this evening. Lots of people are sending in their appreciation and their gratefulness for you being so open and so honest and for sharing from your heart. And so, yeah, just from my side, a huge big thank you. I've learned so much having this conversation with you, been reminded of so much that the Lord has taught me in my journey. And yeah, I just hope that there's someone out there that has been blessed, some young person that may come across this as well. And whether they're young or a little older doesn't really matter. The point is to step out in faith, to give our hearts and our lives to the Lord. We are not missing out on anything in the world when we choose to follow the Lord. In fact, we're choosing the more abundant life, the life of incredible adventure, and there really is no limit to what God can and will accomplish through us if we will just invite Him to do His thing. And He'll do things that we just never even dreamed possible for ourselves. And there'll be these strange forks in the road and new directions taken again that we could never have dreamed of for ourselves. And when we get a little way down the road and we look back, we go, wow, that is out there. That is incredible. So, Katie and Georgia, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We really appreciate everything you've shared tonight.
No worries.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Well, again, I trust you've been blessed. I want to share just one short verse. There really isn't a whole lot that I can possibly add to what these ladies have shared. But this was a verse that really meant something to me as I came to the Lord at about 17 to 18 years of age. And the strange thing was that not knowing where to start reading the Bible, my friends and I opened the Bible in a random place, and it was the book of Ecclesiastes, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend to just anybody when they're starting their journey, but it was a book that resonated with us because so often in the book he talks about how it's all just meaningless and pointless. And that's where we had reached in our journey. That was the conclusion we had reached after living the good life, so to speak, after drug, sex, and rock and roll, as they say, and getting to the end of that journey and wondering, like, why, what for? And it was meaningless. But at the end of the book of Ecclesiastes, there's this powerful little verse. And I put it on the screen here for you. And it says here in the New Living Translation, "Don't let the excitement of youth cause you to forget your Creator. Honor Him in your youth before you grow old and say, life is not pleasant anymore." And if you are already at that stage of your life, I hope you've served the Lord with all that you've had thus far. And He will take you at any stage, at any place in life, because that's what the cross does for us. But if you are a young person, think about this. Make your youth count for something. So make it count all the way into eternity, because you've given the Lord that energy and that youth as early as possible. And the incredible things, the journeys He'll take you on, the people He'll connect you with, and the things that He'll accomplish through you will literally follow you through all the ages of eternity. All the ages of eternity. So I encourage you, as the author says here in the New King James, don't forget the Creator in the days of your youth. So may God bless you. It's been great to have you on the stream with us this evening. Thank you for prioritizing this time and for joining us. And tomorrow night, I'm going to be talking with a good colleague and friend of mine named Ollie Peterson, and he heads up a ministry here in New Zealand called the Hope Channel. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of that and what the big picture is behind it. And I hope that it'll get you excited. So join us Friday evening. We'll be talking to Ollie Peterson about the Hope Channel. Until then, good night. And of course, God bless. May you have an absolutely wonderful evening.